Hello everyone, we have a really exciting video for you today. We're discussing how you can transfer your DBT Cloud instance into DBT Core using Shipyard. If your data is inside of GitHub, it's a really easy process. I'm going to show you step by step in around 20 minutes. So that's pretty short to go from DBT Cloud to DBT Core. I'm going to reference some guides in the video today. I'm going to make sure I drop those in the description for you if you want to follow along. And you're welcome to pause and play and kind of work along with me if you want to as well. If you like this kind of content, feel free to drop a like and subscribe to our channel. We'll be putting out more things just like this. Without further ado, let's dive in. Starting off, we're looking at our project inside of DBT Cloud. So this is what we're going to take over into DBT Core inside of Shipyard. So what we can see here, it's a pretty simple project. I'm not going to win any DBT awards for this specific project, but you can see that we have a long form trigger blueprints project name here. You can see we have just one folder of models here under Google Sheets with a raw, three marts, and then one int in between those models there to help build that thing out. But you can see that we have some things here. We're gonna take this into DBT Core inside of Shipyard. You can have as many, as big of a project size as you want to pull inside of Shipyard. This is just a demo one that I built out using in a project a few months ago. So I just thought I would use that one to keep going here. So with that in mind, this is going to work best if you are currently backing up your DBT Cloud data inside of GitHub. That's a best practice that DBT obviously talks about. So you can see here is that project inside of GitHub. You can see it's connected to Blake, boss's GitHub repository here, but he has it public. So you can see there's those models that we saw earlier there. So the first thing we want to do is I'm going to fork this over into my public repository. If you're using the same thing for your whole business, you won't need to do this step, but I'm just going to do this just to show. I want to show the full process from start to finish here. Don't want to pull any curveballs on you here. So I'm going to go ahead and fork. I'm going to call this thing DBT Cloud, or I'm going to call this thing DBT Cloud to Core Video. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and create the fork there. That's going to create that fork for me inside of my organization, SM Johnson Shipyard there. You can see it's forking, good to go there. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna pull this down to my local machine because we do have to add a few things to actually get this thing up and running. So I'll use GitHub Desktop for that. And listen, I can already hear it in the comments. I know GitHub Desktop is a very controversial subject, but it helps me out. I think it makes things really easy, point and click interface. So yeah, so any judgment you want to toss out, put it in the comments. I'll be sure to read it. So I want to clone a repository there. And we called this thing DBT Cloud to Core. I probably need to let me refresh this thing real quick. So to pull the new ones in, there we go. Clone DBT Cloud. Okay, well, it looks like I want to use our URL. That's fine. Throw that in there. Copy, paste. Perfect. Clone that. We're doing this for our own purposes. There we go. Cloned it. I'm gonna fetch the stuff. Good to go there. I'm gonna open it in VS Code so we can actually start doing some work on it. So I'm gonna open that there. Yes, I trust the authors because it was me. Perfect. Okay, so we got VS Code open here. You can see there's our models. We got all the stuff that we need there. Our DBT project is set up here. So we're good to go. So the first thing that we're gonna want to do is we're gonna want to add a projects.yaml file. Okay, so profiles.yaml file there. Gonna have that, open that up. We're gonna take that directly from the guide that I wrote about getting started with DBT Core and BigQuery. Wrote this back in 2022, but it's as good as it was then as it is now. So pretty cool that this still works out there. I'm gonna go ahead, copy. I'm gonna paste that directly into VS Code. I'm gonna go ahead. So we wanna make sure that the profile is matching there. So I'm just going to call this DBT Core Video there. So that's our profile name. So that's obviously what we want to go on the top of our profiles YAML. Perfect. Dev is fine. It's a BigQuery service account. This is going to work exactly the same inside of Snowflake, inside of Databricks, inside of Redshift. I'm going to post the corresponding guides there. The only thing that's really going to have to change is the profiles YAML and this Python script that I'm going to post in just a moment. But those are all listed in the guides that are corresponding to that. So I'll link those in the description if you use one of those data warehouses as well. So this is the project this is the BigQuery project. So if I look at my BigQuery stuff here, we're doing a Shipyard demos project now. So I'm going to go back into VS Code and change that. So Shipyard, I think it's a Shipyard demos, right? Perfect. So that's good to go there. Data set, I usually use DBT Jack Sparrow, but I'm going to go ahead and do a dbt SpongeBob here to our favorite sponge that lives under the sea. And then you can see we have a BigQuery key file environment variable. We're going to put that inside of Shipyard in just a moment. The reason I don't want to put it directly inside of this profiles.yaml is that this repository could be public. Even if it isn't, it's probably not best practice to put your BigQuery key file inside of any side of GitHub, any type of GitHub repository. So we'll put that inside of our environment variables inside of Shipyard in just a moment. That's encrypted on our side, so it's safe there as well. Okay. So there is our profiles.yaml. So perfect there. I went ahead and saved that. We also need a execute _dbt.py file. So this is what's going to allow us to actually run that script, run dbt core inside of Shipyard. And so again, if I go back to my guides, you can see here is the actual code block that we want there. You can see it tells us to name and execute dbt.py. And go ahead and paste that in there. Save it. I just want to note a few things that are listed here. We have a BigQuery creds environment variable and a dbt commands environment variable. We're going to set those inside of Shipyard in just a moment as well. Okay, so you can see that's all the things we need to do inside of our guides. The next thing is building the dbt models. We've already done that. So the next thing is hopping into Shipyard. So that's what we're going to do next. So let me go ahead and, I'm going to go ahead and save the changes we've made in VS Code. There we go. So there's all of our changes. I'm going to go to GitHub Desktop. I'm going to name this change video changes, commit it to main. Go ahead and push that. Okay, so we're good to go there. So that stuff's in the GitHub repository now that we can run it off of whenever we get to Shipyard. So let's go ahead and open up Shipyard and look and see what that process looks like inside of the application. So I'm gonna go ahead and log in here. Go to Shipyard tutorials. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna build a blueprint so we can just reuse this dbt core command as much as we want. So I'm gonna go to blueprints here. I'm gonna go ahead and add a blueprint Python. So we're gonna need to add a blueprint variable here, which again, I know I sound like a broken record, but this is all inside of the guide. So we're going to call this dbt CLI commands. So add a variable. We're going to call it dbt CLI command. The reference name in the code is dbt commands. You can see I might have done this before. There we go there. We're going to put a required in there. You can put a dbt run as a default value. You can leave it blank if you want. Placeholder, just enter the command that you want to run for dbt core. So go ahead and toss that in there as well. So that's going to show for a user. That's going to be in the bar so that they know what to type in there. So we're going to add that variable, so that's good to go there. So now we're actually putting our code in. So of course you could actually write your code inside of our platform, but we're going to connect into GitHub so we can pull in all that dbt core stuff as well. So it's loading Git here. We can go over here and put the execute dbt.py file to run there. So what this is going to do with GitHub inside of Shipyard, it's actually going to take that repository, dump it all into the file system. It's going to run your models onto your database. And then since we use ephemeral file storage here at Shipyard, it's actually going to go ahead and delete all the stuff in storage as soon as the run is over. So you don't have to worry about any of your models being saved on our side. We delete them after your run is over. So with that in mind, let's go to our repo. And again, this was called dbt cloud to core video. So we'll do dbt cloud to core video. Perfect. We want to run this from the main branch. You have the option to run off of branches if you want. We just have our main branch here. We want to unpack into current working directory, which again, is just going to dump all those files and the file structure that is in GitHub into the current working directory inside of Shipyard so you can reference them that way as well. So we're good to go there and go ahead and click next. So now this is where we're going to set those environment variables that I mentioned earlier. So we have 3 of them. So again, this is in the guide. So you can see they're here. So we have BigQuery creds key files. So let's see, BigQuery creds, BigQuery key file. We have dbt profiles directory there. It's going to work. So we just put a dot in for that one because it's in our home directory. I'm going to go ahead and copy that. That's where our BigQuery creds.json is going to be saved there for our BigQuery credentials. And of course, that BigQuery credentials, that's your actual BigQuery credentials. So don't, obviously don't just type in BigQuery credentials. It's not going to work out very well for you. So I'm going to grab those real quick from OnePass. I joke about that because obviously I have definitely just typed in stuff like that before and just been like, oh, what's what it said in the guide. That means to actually put your actual full JSON file or JSON script in there. It's not script, probably not the right word. Yeah, your full JSON key file in there. It's going to go in there to authenticate. The last thing we're going to do is actually put in our dbt BigQuery package there to install. So I'm sure you can guess, the dbt BigQuery is specifically for BigQuery. There's a dbt Snowflake, dbt Redshift, dbt Databricks that'll work for those data warehouses as well. Again, if you reference those guides, it's going to tell you exactly what to do in those situations. Our guide actually tells you to enter in version 1. There's obviously been updates since then, so you feel free to leave that blank and it's just going to install the most recent version of DBT BigQuery there. So go ahead, next step. So I'm going to name this blueprint. So I'm going to say DBT Cloud to Core Video. There we go. Maybe do some correct capitalizations. There we go. And then I'm going to say DBT Core Inst running from video guide. Perfect. Okay. And again, you can set some guardrails over here on the right side, number of retries, so on and so forth there. Leave those as default. Of course, in your business use case, you might want this thing to retry. You might want to put a little delay, or you might want to put a runtime cutoff in there just to protect from, you know, the train going off the tracks per se. I'm going to leave those blank for right now. You can even put your own organization's icon in there as well if that's something that you would want. I'm going to leave that blank for right now as well, though. So I'm going to go ahead and click Save and Finish, and I'm going to go ahead and use this blueprint. So I'm going to put this inside of our demo or project there. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a simple, I was going to do a DBT run, but there is a command. Let's see, DBT debug is going to work for us. It's going to make sure that everything's set up correctly. So I'm going to run DBT debug there, go and save and finish the fleet, and then I'm going to kick it off. And again, that's going to show us if the things are connected, and then we can do a DBT run to actually build this thing out. So when it went ahead and click save and finish fleet, that saves our fleet for us. It brings us to a screen where it tells us that's been saved, and we can click run now. Went ahead and did that. So you can see we've already started to kick off this fleet. This yellowish orange bar here inside the logs is telling us that, hey, this fleet's actually running. So that's great. So we'll let this thing finish up running. So again, what we're looking for with DBT debug here is just a test to see, hey, can this thing, well, first off, is the DBT instance set up correctly, and can it connect to BigQuery? So if I click on that, it's going to show us that output, and you can see there's a lot of testing that's been done there, but you can see that all checks passed. That means we should be good to go. I say should, because we're doing this thing live, so who knows what's going to happen. So I'm going to go ahead and do a DBT run. But then, of course, kind of the differences between DBT Core and DBT Cloud is that you're kind of missing that user interface to kind of see some output there. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and run a second blueprint here, or a second vessel, I'm sorry. So DBT Cloud to Core Video, perfect. I'm going to go ahead and click that up, connect those together. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to do DBT docs to generate some docs. And then what I'm going to do is I'm also going to set up one more vessel here that's going to just list the files, because I want to kind of show you what gets generated from a DBT Core instance. So I'm going to go ahead and save fleet here. I'm going to go ahead and kick this thing off, and I want to talk about kind of why I set this thing up the way that I did. So I'm going to go ahead and click run now. It's going to kick that fleet off. So kind of what we hear from customers sometimes is that the reason why DBT Cloud is so valuable to them is that they're able to kind of see the information that is in DBT Cloud, like that user interface that DBT has for you. Most, if not all of that information. I don't want to say all because, again, I'm not a DBT power user, so I don't want to say all and then someone, hit me on a technicality. But a lot of the information that you can see inside of DBT Cloud, you can also see if you're using DBT Core as well. Obviously, it's not just going to be sitting there on your computer screen. You have to do something to get it. So that's what I want to show off here, is just kind of show you all those files that are actually sitting there, just so you could, you could put them, you could put them in a Notion doc. You could put them in Google Drive. Right, you could send those to different places, and of course, we have like low-code blueprints for all of those things inside of Shipyard, so that you can take that information wherever you want to take it. So you can see that the run's actually finished here. I'm going to click on that, and you can see, first off, I want to show off. There's those environment variables. Like I said, they're secure. Once they're set inside of our application, they're set and gone. And so you can see down here, you're running blah blah blah. You can see unable to do partial parsing because the saved manifest is not found. So if you want to do partial parsing, you can have that manifest.json file. You can send that guy in first and start from there. Obviously, that's a bit more technical than what I'm trying to do right now, but definitely an option if you want to do that. You can see the models that are being built here. It finished running those 5 view models, completed successfully. It passed 5. It tells you if you skipped or if there's any warnings. But we're looking good there. DBT docs ran here. You can see so on and so forth there. So that was successful. And then, of course, if I go to list all files, it's going to show you, I'm going to scroll up here to the top, because you can see, where is that at? Well, first off, you can just see all the stuff that gets generated, which I think is really cool. You can see there's the Python scripts, like there's all of our folders from GitHub. I think that's really neat to look at, just so you know what's actually happening behind the scenes there. But you can see, okay, so here's manifest.json, so that's some good stuff there. Run results.json. So again, the stuff that you would expect to see there is there, and of course you can connect one of our Google Drive or Notion, any of those blueprints that you want to do to send that information somewhere so that your team can see them, you definitely can do that. And of course, you can also just use those files and actually do some analysis using Python, using some native Python code in your side as well if you wanted to see that. So yeah, in this video, we've actually taken a working DBT cloud instance that I used in a project. So you can go back and check that out on our YouTube. So I actually took one of those projects that I was using DBT Cloud to run, took that from GitHub inside of Shipyard and ran it using DBT Core. So if your organization's thinking about making the switch from DBT Cloud to DBT Core, we'd love to help you out with that switch. And obviously you can see not too much legwork involved to get it working there. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the description. And if not, we'd love to talk to you. So we'll see you next time.